The first thing Claire Monroe heard that morning was her own name thrown through the air like a weapon. Not spoken, thrown, sharp enough to cut. She had only just stepped into the conference room when the words slammed into her. "She's the one who signed it. Claire approved the transfer." The voice belonged to a junior accountant she'd passed in the hallway but never spoken to beyond a clipped greeting. His face was flushed, his index finger pointed at her chest, and the room froze, an audience that had decided the play's villain without seeing the script. It hit her that abruptly, she forgot how to breathe for a second. An 8:15 a.m. printout, grainy, 2 pages, was held up like a verdict. Her typed name at the bottom, her digital signature beneath it. A wire transfer of $280,000 from a municipal community redevelopment fund, one she managed, directed to a vendor she didn't recognize. The header read, "Emergency Facilities Subcontract." The fluorescent lights felt too bright. The overhead hum became too loud. Claire forced air into her lungs and, with a steadiness she half faked and half mustered, asked, "Excuse me, what transfer?" Eyes slid toward her, but they were not neutral now. They carried the velocity of collective assumption, that peculiar electric current that turns colleagues into jurors. The room's temperature had dropped in one slow sweep. Jason Miller, Deputy Director of the Department of Community Initiatives, stood at the head of the table. He'd been in the building for years, a man whose competence had always been framed in small, careful decisions. Today he looked brittle. Claire saw the tightness at his jaw, the rapid blink she'd once noticed before a bad presentation. Fear flashed across his face, not for her reputation, she realized with a cold tilt of intuition, but for his own. "We need to address this immediately," he said, voice even but hollow, as if reading lines someone else had written for him. The audit team flagged a transfer from the redevelopment fund. It's irregular and appears to have been authorized using Claire's credentials. Someone used her credentials. The sentence landed like a stone. She opened her mouth to reply, to explain, to trip into 1,000 possible defensive phrases. Before she could, a firm voice cut the room. "She didn't sign that." All heads turned. Marisa Hale stood framed in the doorway, tablet held to her chest. She had arrived late, rare for Marisa, who moved through the office with the mechanical punctuality of someone who ran their life according to a calendar and a series of checklists. Her coat was still on, the collar turned up against the Boston mist. Her hair was pinned in a loose knot that made her look as if she had been pulled from something serious straight into crisis. She stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the printout. "That's not Claire's formatting," she said. "That signature looks pasted, and the numbers don't match our charting convention." The accountant who'd shouted stammered. "It logged from her user ID, time-stamped at 2:04 a.m. Marisa cut him off with a look sharp enough to silence. "Timestamps can be manipulated. Look at the stroke weight. It's too even. It's an overlay." The warmth in Claire's chest that rose when Marisa defended her was not relief. It was something thinner and, paradoxically, stronger. Recognition that someone in the room refused to let the narrative run without question. Jason put his hands up like a man trying to slow a spill. "Let it pull the access logs. Audit will expand scope immediately." No one left the room immediately. Word spread. Offices gossip like smoke. Paper burns into headlines. By the time Claire got back to her desk, her inbox had become a miniature scene of panic. Flagged emails, requests for statements, polite-seeming queries phrased as formal documentation requests. A direct message blinked on her screen. "Aaron Campbell, Internal Counsel. Call me. In person. Now." Aaron came in without knocking, a habit Claire had grown to appreciate and occasionally dread. Aaron's gray coat was unbuttoned, her hair a neat bob damp with the city's drizzle. She was efficient in a way that made crisis feel like an object to be dismantled, methodical, inverse to the noise of accusation. "Tell me everything," Aaron said, taking a seat without invitation. She had the look of someone who had seen narratives form and knew the precise spots where they were brittle. Claire told her. The morning, the printout, the name, Jason's ambivalence. She slid the photocopy Marisa had pressed into her hand across the desk. Aaron studied it under the lamp's white circle, eyes traveling slowly over the ink, the margins, the faint code strings at the bottom of the second page. Aaron's mouth thinned when she reached the lower corner. "Tiny initials," she murmured. "LF. Leonard Fisher." Claire's stomach dropped. Leonard, head of the municipal accounting unit, unassuming, efficient, the kind of bureaucrat who preferred systems to faces. He'd been helpful in odd ways the last few months, advising on software reconfiguration, offering late-night help with integrating vendor portals. Offers that, in retrospect, made Claire feel unaccountably beholden. Who else knew about that vendor? Aaron asked. Claire rattled off the names. The project manager at the site, a regional contractor listed in an old directory, one of the procurement liaisons who had been on maternity leave. Aaron nodded. We'll request immediate forensic access logs. If someone used Claire's credentials, we can trace the machine and location, but it will take time. More importantly, someone has leaked this internally, prepped a document, and timed its presentation to the audit release. That indicates coordination. As if to underline Aaron's declaration, Claire's phone chimed again. A message from an unknown number, anonymous. You're next in line. 3 words, no context, null signature. Her throat closed. An old animal part of her felt the incline of danger, isolation imposed by a public narrative. Marisa returned at the edge of the doorway with 2 coffee cups in hand, balancing a small trinity of steam. She slipped one to Claire with an efficiency that skirted sentimentality. I came as soon as I could, she said quietly. I heard... Thank you, Claire said, and the word sounded like a bargain. A small hand reached out. Marissa's fingertips brushed Claire's wrist for a heartbeat longer than necessary. A warmth passed between them, ordinary and human, as if contact could glue the fault lines a little. You okay? Marisa asked, more present than any of the polite roof people who had circled the issue like scavengers. No, Claire admitted, because it was true. But no one's proved anything. I know, Marisa said, and that's the problem. People prefer stories that end quickly. Erin folded her hands, eyes on both women. This will escalate, she said. If the audit team receives that file and includes it in their preliminary notes, you'll be the face of the problem. We need to get in front of it. How? Claire's voice was small. Everything points to me. My name's on it. Name on a document is only one piece of paper, Erin replied. Signatures can be forged, logs can be altered, and emails can be spoofed. IT forensics will give us pathing. Meanwhile, I need your full event timeline for the last month. Who had access to your workstation? Who logged in under your credentials? Any odd support tickets? Claire started to list and then stopped. Leonard's help, the late-night server updates, the vendor portal added by procurement. Each insignificant detail had the potential to be rearranged into damning shape. It was not a fair game. As they formed a list, Claire's phone vibrated again, this time with an image attachment. She opened it. A screenshot of a calendar entry, confidential, review Morel file, with attendees listed, Jason Miller, Leonard Fisher, and one name blurred. Time, 7 p.m. The hairs rose on Claire's arms, a private meeting in the evening, a name blurred, deliberately or by poor cropping she couldn't tell. Her mind raced through worst-case possibilities. Erin's jaw tightened. Someone is preparing a narrative for tonight, possibly to leak to the press tomorrow morning. We must assume the worst. Marissa's hand found Claire's again, a light anchor. We'll be with you, she said simply. Claire wanted to believe her. Want is a fragile verb. She had worked for a decade in municipal projects, learning the small cruelties of funding, the patience required to shepherd a community theater's HVAC replacement or a park renovation. Her love for the job had been pragmatic. Cafes after late meetings, precise spreadsheets, the rare, palpable moment when a neighborhood opened a refurbished center and children filled it with sound. Now the machinery that had sustained her felt poised to run her over. Erin closed her laptop with a calm finality. I will file for an immediate audit hold request and a legal protective memo. Public statement draft. Limited release. We'll demand raw logs before the audit releases anything. We'll prepare an internal release that explains we're investigating irregularities and we cannot prejudge. Simultaneously, I want you to collect any physical notes, copies of invoices, calls, anything you have. Don't discard anything. Claire nodded and felt the weight of that nod like a ledger entry. There was business to do. And then there was the intimate, tender labor of holding on to one's interior life, while the world rearranged to blame you. At 5:30 p.m., Claire sat alone at her kitchen table with a stack of file prints, fatigue heavy behind her eyes. The city beyond her window bled gray into night. She'd dictated notes into her phone, arranged documents chronologically, and left 3 voicemail messages with Aaron's office. Updates and clarifications. At 6:15 p.m., an alert pinged. An email from a burner account, subject line blank. Attachment, a folder labeled evidence-morel.zip. Her hands shook. She didn't open it. Instead, she called Aaron. No answer. She texted Marisa, "Are you near City Hall?" In less than a minute, the reply came. "At the department. Bring everything. Don't open unknown attachments." Claire let the phone fall back into her lap. The evening outside was a washed brush stroke. She imagined the images in that zipped folder, fabricated invoices, doctored signatures. She imagined eyes on her, the slow decay of reputation into rumor. Then her phone buzzed one last time that night, this time an automated calendar invite with a single line in the description. Tonight, 7 p.m. Location, Conference Room B, urgent. The organizer, Jason Miller. It was an invitation she would not have accepted a month ago. Now it felt like a trap with fluorescent lights. She looked at the time. 6:52 p.m. She gathered her files, squared her shoulders, and left her apartment. The city's drizzle had become a steadier rain. Claire tucked the stack of papers into her briefcase like a shield and walked toward the subway, toward a meeting whose purpose she did not trust, and whose outcome could very well decide more than a job. In the cold air, her breath became visible. She thought of Marisa's hand, Aaron's calm strategy, and the tiny initials at the bottom of the page. It did not comfort her much. What comforted her a little was the feeling of someone, Marisa, standing near enough to be a border. The worst accusation in the world was not simply that you had been blamed, it was being blamed alone. She stepped into the elevator at the side entrance to City Hall and pressed the button for the second floor. The doors closed. On the mirrored panel, her reflection split into fragments of light and water. She straightened her shoulders, as if practice could change the weight of what awaited. When the elevator doors opened, the corridor outside Conference Room B was quiet and fluorescent. No journalists, no cameras, just an administrative hush and the small click of heels approaching. Claire walked forward, files clutched, and then the corridor lights flickered once, soft, almost polite, and the air held its breath. A voice behind her said, "Claire?" She turned. Marisa stood a step away, coat buttoned, rain beating on the lapel. Marisa's mouth formed a small, steady smile that did not reach the eyes at first. Then she said softly, "I'm right here." Claire felt something like a tide turn, small but real. She nodded and followed her inside. The door closed behind them. The world narrowed to fluorescent light, a low buzzing HVAC, and a table where men's hands smoothed papers. The meeting began. Halfway through, a junior staffer set a laptop on the table and projected a single slide, an image of the supposedly approved transfer, with Claire's signature circled, a file name, a timestamp. Claire watched the projected image until the pixels blurred. She recognized the scrawl that had been passed around, the same falsified hand. But then the projected slide froze, and an icon blinked in the corner. A live message popped up on the screen. Unknown sender. Tonight's meeting is only the start. Look at Archive N1. The message was anonymous. The room's air thinned to glass. Claire swallowed. The sound of the clock in the hall seemed loud. She had no sense if the message was a threat or a clue. The presenter glanced at Jason. Jason's face drained. He tapped his phone, then looked back at the assembled people. "This meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene later." People rose like dominoes, muttering quietly. Claire's files felt heavier than before, her throat a narrow channel. As she rose, her phone buzzed. An unknown message, 2 words. "They're planning tonight." The elevator closed. The corridor lengthened. Claire gripped her briefcase until her knuckles whitened. She thought of the initials. She thought of Aaron's urgent lists. She thought of Marisa standing at the door like a small, brave place. And she thought, with the stark clarity of someone forced to the edge, someone in the city's machine was trying to erase her. Not just her job, but her voice. She stepped into the rain and began to walk. The rain had not stopped. It moved around Boston like a suggestion of weather rather than an event, a persistent background of damp and small lights. Claire's briefcase thudded against her knee as she waited under the portico, adrenaline stringing the joints of her hands. She shouldn't have been here so early. She shouldn't have felt compelled to arrive before anyone else did. But the night's messages had been patient in their menace. They're planning tonight. Look at Archive N1, the calendar entry marked by Jason. The anonymous folder. The sense that something was being assembled against her with a slow, patient intention. Marisa arrived just behind her. Umbrella folded, hair pinned more carefully than earlier. She moved with that quiet decisiveness that had comforted Claire the night before, and that now felt like a rope thrown across a ravine. "You saw the calendar?" Claire asked. "I saw it," Marisa said simply. "But I also saw Leonard in the hallway at 6:40 last night. He looked like he was heading to the server room. I didn't think to follow him. I should have." "You should not have followed him," Claire said. "You needed to sleep." Marisa's mouth twitched, part apology, part stubbornness. "I couldn't. I'm here." They crossed the building together. The press wasn't here, at least not yet. That in itself felt strange. It should have been loud at this point. Whispers, scuttling cameras, the metropolitan appetite for a scandal already whetting its teeth. Inside, the audit team had set up an emergency room 2 doors down from the main conference area. A fold-out table, a whiteboard with scribbles and a supply of paper cups, laptops laid out in a small makeshift rampart. IT had a grim face as the lead technician connected to an external node. Erin met them at the doorway, shoes deadened from the floors, face composed. "We have preliminary logs," she said, "but someone attempted to clear certain entries last night. The access points show a remote host in the building, one with an internal routing marker, which means the request originated inside our network." "Internal," Claire repeated. The word felt heavy. Erin nodded. "We've flagged Leonard's activity for the weekend. He accessed the project server at odd hours and mounted an external export. That could explain how the file appeared in the audit packet." She turned to the IT lead. "Can you trace the origin of that external export?" "Yes," the lead said. "But the export was proxied through a departmental node that uses shared credentials. Someone masked it. It's going to take full forensic readout to unmask which user actually pushed the export." Claire closed her eyes for a breath. Masked. Shared credentials. So many small bureaucratic conveniences, shared logins, blanket admin accounts, had become culpable loopholes. She had suggested stricter protocols months ago and been told the cost was prohibitive. "It means someone with access deliberately weaponized our infrastructure," Erin continued. "It's not a mistake. It's not a glitch. The timing suggests an intention to create a pretext." At 10:30, the audit team sent a secure note to all department heads. "Preliminary indications of irregular transfers under review. Pending results, no unilateral comments." The statement was dry and cautious in equal measure, designed to avoid a feeding frenzy while keeping them protected. But the internal memo could not stop rumor. By noon, office conversations grew louder. The human mind loves a cause and an effect, and few things are more efficient than a scapegoat. An hour later, a citywide morning radio show posted a cautious segment online about internal irregularities in city projects. It quoted an anonymous source close to administrative review. The anchors paraded questions like hungry birds, and for the first time, Claire felt a public wind begin to ruffle the edge of her life. Erin called a legal strategy huddle in the small emergency room. "We have 2 paths," she said. "One, we go public with a preemptive statement with our version of the facts and demand patience while we gather logs. 2, we compile an airtight forensic report and release only when it compels exoneration. Both have risk. We need to weigh timing." Marisa looked at Claire. "What do you want?" she asked simply. Claire felt the crush of the moment. It would have been easier if someone else could decide. "We need the forensic proof first," she said. "If we go public now, it's noise. If we wait for evidence, it feels defensive, but it's stronger." Erin nodded, respect in her eyes. "I will push for expedited forensic analysis. But understand, if Leonard and his allies prepare a narrative overnight and a press release goes out, we might have to respond defensively to avoid the whole narrative locking in." Claire could almost taste the shape of the trap. The city statement, the image of her signature, the headline. She shoved down the rising panic with the same tools she used to steady a failing project. Checklists, timelines, procedure. It was nearly mechanical. By late afternoon, the IT team had a trace showing the export's proxy path stopped at an admin terminal in the financial office that Leonard had access to. The team marked the path in red and noted the times. "We can get device logs," said the lead, "but we need written approval to subpoena internal system logs with a strict chain of custody." "It's not automatic." Erin wrote the request, crisp and legal, and sent it to Jason. She copied the city controller's office. The request pinged through channels and returned with an acknowledgement. "Under review." Claire watched the clock. At 6:45 p.m., as they prepared to leave, Jason called a quick shut-door meeting with his senior staff and the financial director. Claire's name was on the agenda. She remained outside the room, pacing the corridor, watching the hands of the clock. Her phone buzzed. A short message. "Archive N1, check folder." With an anonymous sender again. Her stomach flipped. Marisa grabbed her sleeve. "We'll get it," she said, "even if it takes a week." Claire nodded, and for a moment the city's weight felt less singular. But at 7:10 p.m., a press alert lit up on every newsroom desk. A local outlet had obtained an internal memo referencing unauthorized transfers and named an administrative official as responsible. The piece hinted that the city was preparing to release a statement. Panic ran like a pulse through the hallways. Meetings were called. Jason walked out with his face composed, delivering the city's initial measured line. "We are reviewing potential irregularities and cannot comment at this time." But the seed had been planted. As Claire left the building with Marisa, a small knot in her stomach told her this was no longer only about paperwork. This was a fight for the narrative itself. Whoever had engineered the file had not only fabricated evidence, they had also understood the speed at which a rumor becomes truth when it is pushed through the right channels. On the sidewalk, the rain had become a sheen like old coins. Marisa slipped her umbrella over both of them as they crossed the street. "Go home," Marisa said softly. "Sleep. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll sit with the audit team." Claire looked at her, at the steady line of her jaw, at the patience in the way she arranged the umbrella so small drops wouldn't find their way on Claire's shoulders. The tenderness at the edge of it was a quiet, stubborn declaration. She wanted to collapse from exhaustion, physical and administrative, but she thought instead of the initials LF at the bottom of the page, of a meeting with Jason and Leonard that night, and the anonymous messages guiding them to Archive N1. She reached for her phone and typed to Erin. "Any update? Are you getting logs?" 2 minutes later, a reply. "We have partial device logs. There's a trace to a machine in the finance office. Leonard has a keycard swipe at 1:42 a.m. on the night of the export." Claire's breath hitched. "Don't do anything risky," Erin's message read after that. "We'll coordinate. Trust the chain." Marisa tightened her grip on the umbrella. "We'll get you back," she said. "I'll be at the audit tomorrow." Claire exhaled and let the rain blur the city into a watercolor. She thought, with simple, raw clarity, the work of undoing this would be meticulous and slow. It would require people willing to hold on when the world tried to watch them fall. As they reached the crosswalk, a man in a dark coat hurried past and dropped something at Claire's feet, an envelope, unmarked. Before she could pick it up, he was gone into the crowd. She bent to retrieve it. Inside, a single folded sheet, a photocopy of the false approval, with one line penciled under the signature. "Check Archive N1. Tonight at 9 p.m., a new knot of dread and resolve settled in her chest. Someone wanted them to look at Archive N1 at 9 p.m. Why 9 p.m.? She held the paper in her hand as Marisa hailed a cab. On the ride home, Claire's mind worked like a ledger. Times, names, the chain of custody Erin insisted upon, and the tiny, outraged certainty that someone had chosen her as the fall guy for something broader. By the time they reached Claire's building, her phone vibrated with another anonymous message that read only, "Don't trust the meeting tonight." She slid the folded photocopy into her bag and climbed the stairs to her apartment with Marisa beside her, thinking of how narratives were constructed, how a few strokes on a page, when laid into the right infrastructure, could become a story that swallowed a person whole. At home, the city lights made a pale grid on the ceiling. Claire laid out the documents and felt their edges, the roughness of paper like small bones of truth. She set an alarm for 8:20 p.m., and then another for 8:50. She had decided she would not attend Archive N1 at 9 that night. She would not be bait. She would gather evidence, and she would wait. At 8:47 p.m., as she prepared the secure file package to send to Aaron, an email arrived in her inbox. Subject: confidential. Archive N1 access log. Attachment: a single file named n1access.csv. Claire hesitated, pulse picking up. She opened it and read. A list of internal access records, machine IDs, timestamps. Her eyes dropped to the line marked 1:41 a.m. Leonard Fisher, machine ID 23. External export flagged. Beneath that, a second line, 2:04 a.m. User, Claire Monroe, machine ID 23, manual override. Her breath left her. Someone had used the same machine and by proxy had matched her user. The CSV suggested a methodical mapping to make it appear as though both actions were connected. Either it was a brilliant frame, or it was the first piece of the evidence she could use. She notified Aaron immediately and sent the file to her secure channel. Aaron's reply was swift. Do not respond to any invites. Do not attend tonight. Let us build the forensic path. We will request a preservation order at once. On the kitchen counter, the city's soundscape, cars, distant sirens, a late bar closing, went on indifferent. Claire's eyes burned with the acuity of someone who has been pushed into historical defense. She folded the printout carefully and put it into a folder labeled, For Aaron. Then she texted Marisa, Stay close, no surprises. I'll be offline for a bit. Marisa responded with a single emoji, 2 hands clasped. At 9 p.m., the city hummed. Claire sat on her couch with the lights low, her phone silent, and the files stacked beside her like small, patient witnesses. She did not know who had dropped the envelope on the sidewalk, or why someone anonymous wanted them to check Archive N1. She could only feel the slow tightening of a narrative that might end in ruin or in rescue, depending on whether people were willing to look hard and to tell what they found. Outside, rain smudged the streetlights into tracks of gold. Claire pressed her forehead to the cool glass and thought of the meeting she had not attended and the meeting she had watched from within the room earlier. She closed her eyes, thinking of Marissa's steady presence and Aaron's legal command. She felt a resolve like cold metal in the bones. They would not let this stand. Somewhere in the city, a clock struck 9. The moment Claire stepped into City Hall that morning, she felt the shift in the air. Not imagined. Not paranoia. A real shift, like stepping into a room where someone had been talking about you and stopped just 1 second too late. It wasn't the usual hush of early hours. It was the kind of silence that covers noise rather than absence, a blanket laid over something still moving beneath it. She caught the glance of a receptionist she'd known for years. The woman gave her a polite nod but immediately lowered her eyes, as if Claire were a person she wasn't supposed to be seen being friendly with. A chill crawled across Claire's shoulders. The narrative was spreading faster than the truth could keep up. She adjusted her bag and moved down the hallway. The carpet absorbed her footsteps, but the tension rose with every door she passed. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she saw the posted flyer. A single sheet of paper. A headline in bold, not official, anonymously printed. Investigation widens inside city initiatives. Source, funds improperly redirected. No names. But the subheading didn't need any. Approval stamped by a senior project coordinator. Her role. Her job. Her. Claire's throat tightened. Someone had escalated this into a public escalation point. A second flyer sat beneath the first. Same headline, but this one had a handwritten note scrawled in pen. Ask her what she knows. Claire felt her pulse spike, a cold rush through the ribs. She took the stairs instead of the elevator. Halfway up, her phone buzzed. Marisa. Don't stop to confront it. Come to the audit room. We found something. Claire's hand trembled slightly, but not out of fear. Not entirely. The idea of stepping into the one place where truth was still being pieced together felt like oxygen. She climbed faster. When she entered the temporary audit room, Marisa was already there, leaning over a laptop with the IT forensic specialist. Aaron stood behind them, arms crossed, eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. Marisa glanced up first, her expression softened at the sight of Claire. Barely, but enough to warm the air between them. You need to see this. Claire approached, pulse hammering. The forensic specialist tapped the screen. We found metadata inconsistencies on the supposed transfer file. Look here, this document has 2 creation timestamps. one at 1:41 a.m. and another at 2:04. Claire stared. 2 creation times? A file can't... Not unless someone copied the original, altered it, and then forced a new timestamp, the specialist said. It's a sloppy job, but subtle enough that most auditors wouldn't notice unless they were told exactly where to look. Aaron's voice was low, which means someone wanted this discovered just enough to make it look legitimate, but not enough to hold up in court. Claire felt the implications sink in all at once. So they didn't care if the file was perfect, Claire murmured. They only needed it believable enough to create a narrative. Exactly, Aaron said. And once the narrative is public, you spend months, sometimes years, trying to claw your way back to neutral. Marisa clicked another window open. We also located the machine that logged the export. She pointed at the ID number. Same one Leonard used the night before. But look at this. She zoomed in. Machine location. Finance office. West Wing night access. 1:41 a.m. Leonard Fisher. Night access. 2:04 a.m. Claire Monroe. Except the second one didn't fully match her credentials. Claire leaned closer. Her stomach dropped. That's not my internal UID, she whispered. Someone typed it manually. The forensic specialist nodded. It's a mimic. Close enough to fool the audit report headers, but the inner string doesn't match your assigned hash. A mimic. A fake. A construction. Claire's breath shook. Someone had stitched her into the crime. Aaron exhaled slowly, her composure thinning just enough for concern to show. Whoever is orchestrating this knows internal structures very well. This isn't amateur manipulation. This is someone with high-level access and a very personal intention. Marisa didn't look away from Claire. There was something in her eyes, in the quiet, controlled warmth of them, that made Claire simultaneously steadier and more breakable. Claire, Marisa said softly, I don't want you walking anywhere alone inside this building today. The words struck Claire with surprising force. Protective. Direct. Spoken not from fear, but from something deeper. And I mean it, Marisa added, stepping closer. If someone went this far to implicate you, they won't stop here. A thin breath escaped Claire's lips. Being believed, being protected by someone she barely knew a month ago, made her insides ache with something she didn't know how to name. Before she could respond, Aaron closed her folder. We need access to Archive N1, Aaron said. Now. Claire's head snapped up. Someone told me last night not to go. And that's exactly why we're going, Aaron replied. If someone wanted you to show up alone, that's dangerous. But we're not sending you alone. We're going as a team. The audit specialist stood. I'll accompany. That archive hasn't been touched since the renovation. Marisa grabbed her tablet. Show me the access logs for that archive. Aaron nodded approvingly. Good. We need chain of custody documentation before we open anything. No surprises. Together, they walked down the west corridor. Claire, Marisa just half a step closer than strictly necessary, Aaron marching in front like a shield of legal precision, and the forensic specialist trailing with equipment. The hallway was dim, lit by old fluorescent fixtures that flickered in uneven rhythms. The city was upgrading heating systems this quarter, but no one had bothered to fix the hallway's lighting yet. Archive N1 was a basement-level storage room near the older wing of City Hall, the part preserved for historical records. The metal door was heavy and painted the same dull municipal gray as the service stairway. Aaron scanned her badge. Access denied. Try again, Marisa said. Aaron scanned a second time. Access denied authorization, overridden. A cold pulse ran down Claire's spine. Someone locked it? Claire whispered. Aaron exchanged a glance with the specialist. Or someone pre-authorized a higher-level lock after sending that anonymous message last night. Marisa folded her arms. The override log should tell us who. The forensic specialist opened the control panel on his tablet, typing rapidly. A stream of data scrolled. There, he said. Override was executed at 3:12 a.m. Aaron leaned in. Who authorized it? The specialist paused. His brows drew together. The system lists the override as coming from a city administrator's master credentials. Claire's stomach plunged. Marisa whispered, Which administrator? The specialist swallowed. It doesn't say. What do you mean it doesn't say? Claire's voice cracked. Master credentials don't show identity, the specialist said. They only show the tier used. It's deliberate. Legacy system. It makes tracking overrides extremely difficult. Erin stepped back, thinking hard. This was planned, she murmured. Someone wanted access restricted right before we approached it. Marisa turned slightly toward Claire, shielding her unconsciously. Then, just as Erin prepared to call the city controller, something clicked inside the door. A mechanical shift. Soft. Deliberate. The lock disengaged on its own. All four froze. Erin whispered, "Nobody moved, correct?" "No," Marisa breathed. The door creaked open half an inch. Cold air drifted out, carrying with it the faint smell of dust and old paper. Claire's pulse drummed in her ears. "Someone's inside," she whispered. The forensic specialist shook his head. No movement on the thermal scan. Another click, this time internal. The door opened another inch, as if someone had unlocked it from the inside and stepped away. Erin drew a slow breath. "We enter together." Marisa reached back and, without hesitation, took Claire's wrist. Not a romantic gesture, not a bold one, but an anchor. Warm, solid, unmistakably protective. "Stay with me," Marisa whispered. Claire's throat tightened. Erin pushed the door fully open. Inside, Archive N1 was dimly lit. Stacks of binders and banker boxes lining metal shelves. Dust floated like slow-moving static in the narrow beam of the overhead light. The room looked undisturbed. Too undisturbed. Claire stepped forward, Marissa's hand still loosely holding her wrist, guiding her without force, just presence. The forensic specialist powered a small work light and scanned the shelves. "It's not this room we need," he said. "It's the server cabinet in the back. Archive N1 isn't just physical storage. It used to house auxiliary database backups before the last reorganization." Erin frowned. "But that cabinet should have been disconnected 2 years ago." Marisa reached the far wall first. Her light swept across a metal cabinet bolted beneath a ventilation pipe, and then she froze. "Claire," she called. Claire approached. Her heart hammered against her ribs. There, taped to the front of the cabinet, was a manila envelope, her name written on it, not typed, handwritten. Her breath left her. Erin stepped between them. "No one touches anything. We need gloves." The forensic specialist handed her a pair. Erin carefully tore the envelope open. Inside, a single printed page, a screenshot of an email thread. Sender, Leonard Fisher. Recipient, Jason Miller. Subject, Ari, transfer cover, urgent. Body, use her signature. She'll fold. Claire's knees went weak. Marisa steadied her with a hand at her back. A subtle, instinctive movement. Erin wasn't done. "There's more," she said, pulling out a second page. This one showed something worse, a draft public statement naming Claire directly. Not reviewed, not approved, prepared in advance, and dated today. Claire's breath came shallow. They were going to release this. Marissa's hand slid from Claire's wrist to her forearm, firmer now. Erin's voice was cutting cold. "Someone planted this here. Whoever sent those messages wants us to know the truth, but not publicly. Not yet." The forensic specialist pointed at the bottom corner. "There's a digital watermark, very faint. That could identify the printer." Erin nodded. "Bag everything. We're leaving." But just as they stepped back toward the door, Claire froze. Her phone vibrated. A new message. "No sender ID. You shouldn't have opened the archive." Her blood turned to ice. A second message arrived instantly. "Now they know you saw it." Claire lifted her head slowly. Somewhere beyond the doorway, down the dim corridor, a shadow moved. The moment they stepped out of Archive N1, Claire felt the building listening, not watching, listening. As if the walls themselves were waiting to see what she would do with what she now knew. Erin closed the door with deliberate calm, but her fingers trembled just enough for Claire to notice. The forensic specialist sealed the envelope, tagged it, and locked it in a portable evidence container. Marisa stayed close, too close to be accidental. Close enough that Claire could feel the warmth of her beside her in the cold hallway. "Don't look behind you," Marisa murmured. The instinct to turn was immediate. The instinct to obey was stronger. They moved as a small unit toward the stairwell. Erin led. The specialist followed. Marisa and Claire walked almost shoulder to shoulder. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A single light flickered as they passed under it. Claire's phone buzzed again. Unknown. Room 314. Before they do. Her breath caught. Not another message. Not another riddle. Not another directive pulling her into the center of someone else's narrative. But Erin saw the notification flash on Claire's screen and slowed her pace. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Claire showed her. Erin exhaled. "We're not splitting up. If someone wants you isolated, we do the opposite." Marisa touched Claire's arm, steady and subtle. "We stay together. No exceptions." Room 314 was in the administrative wing, a place where mid-level reporting, interdepartmental budgeting, and routine reviews took place. It wasn't the kind of room that held secrets, which meant someone chose it for a reason. When they arrived at the door, the hallway was empty. A printed note was taped to the door. "Do not enter, filed under review." Erin's jaw tightened. "That's not official." She pushed the door open. The room was dim, the blinds half drawn. A single monitor glowed on a desk. And there, displayed in the center of the screen, was something that made Claire's stomach lurch. A spreadsheet of every major transfer Claire had managed in the past 2 years. Color-coded, annotated, rearranged. Except the annotations weren't hers. They were written in a style she recognized instantly. Leonard's. Erin moved to the desk, leaning forward. "He's been building a long-form case narrative," she said. "Not just a forged transfer. A timeline of supposed pattern inconsistencies." The specialist zoomed in on the spreadsheet. "Look at this. Half these comments are wrong. They're misinterpretations of standard procedure presented as irregularities." Claire swallowed hard. "He's reframing my entire project history." Marisa stepped closer, shoulder brushing Claire's lightly as she studied the screen. "He's creating the illusion of misconduct," Marisa said, "like laying breadcrumbs backward. If someone looks at this without context, it looks suspicious. But in context?" She shook her head. "It's nothing." "Context doesn't matter," Erin said soberly. "Narrative does. And Leonard's building one designed to collapse on top of you." Claire felt her knees weaken. 2 years of work. 2 years of late meetings, community outreach, political threads, impossible timelines. 2 years of evidence turned into weapon. She pressed her palm against the table to steady herself. Marisa noticed. And without hesitation, she placed her hand lightly over Claire's. Not clasping, not holding, just grounding. Quiet, steady gravity. Claire didn't pull away. Before anyone could speak, the specialist clicked into a hidden column. And there it was. A draft memo, dated 2 weeks ago, long before the forged transfer appeared. Subject: Recommendation for disciplinary action. Target: Claire Monroe. Rationale: Ongoing irregularities, repeated discrepancies, escalated findings to be released following auditor consultation. Claire's chest tightened painfully. 2 weeks ago? They were planning this before anything happened. Erin nodded slowly. "This isn't reactive. It's premeditated. Someone wanted to remove you, and they wanted justification prepared in advance." "But why me?" Claire whispered. "Why target me?" Marisa turned to her gently. "Because you don't play politics. Because you don't bend. Because you pushed back on Leonard's contractor shortcuts. And because someone, maybe more than one person, benefits from making you the problem." Claire blinked hard, emotion stinging behind her eyes. "I didn't think anyone noticed whether I bent or not." Marisa held her gaze, steady and warm. "I did." The words hit her like a soft impact. Before she could absorb them, Erin's phone buzzed sharply. She went pale. "What?" Claire asked. "A press outlet just published a leak," Erin said. "It includes part of the memo we saw in here." Claire's breath vanished. "No names yet," Erin added, "but the implication is strong. And the phrasing, a senior coordinator repeatedly flagged for internal irregularities. That's you, Claire." The room felt like it tilted. Marisa stepped closer, her presence like a barrier against the collapsing air. "We can still counter this. We have evidence. We have access logs." Erin cut her off. "We have partial evidence, and they're moving faster than we can respond." The specialist turned from the computer. "There's more." He clicked open an unmarked file folder. Inside were screenshots, scrolling threads, blurred snippets of internal Slack conversations. Private emails between Claire and community partners, taken out of context, rearranged, twisted. Claire stared, numb. They're building a story where everything you did becomes suspicious, the specialist said. Even routine emails. Marisa cursed under her breath. Claire felt a pressure building behind her ribs. Fear, anger, betrayal coiling into something heavy and hard. She swallowed it. But then, from the corner of the screen, a notification popped up. A small blinking icon. The specialist clicked it. A live document opened. A draft press statement. It was time-stamped 10 minutes ago. It contained Claire's name. Her pulse crashed. How? She whispered. Aaron exhaled shakily. They're accelerating. Someone wants this done today, before we can assemble a defense. The specialist frowned. This draft didn't originate from this computer. It's syncing from the network, real time. Claire stared at the glowing screen. Someone else is editing it right now? A new line appeared on the page, right in front of them. As they watched. And Ms. Monroe's actions remained unexplained at the time of publication. Marisa took a step forward, fury tightening her posture. They're writing the story before we even speak. Another line appeared. City leadership is cooperating fully with auditors. Another. The department is committed to transparency. Claire felt like she was watching her future shrink. Her name, her career, her credibility. Being rewritten by someone who didn't even have the decency to sign their own sentences. Aaron's voice was sharp. We print everything, screenshot everything, and we go straight to the controller's office. The specialist started capturing files. Marisa moved to unplug the workstation, but as she reached for the cord, the screen flickered. Once, twice, then a message appeared. White text on a black background. Centered. You weren't supposed to see this? Marisa froze. Aaron swore. Claire felt the bottom fall out of her lungs. The cursor blinked twice. Then, come alone. Marisa sucked in a breath. Claire, don't. Whatever they're doing, don't. The message continued. Or the release goes live. A countdown appeared. 0:59, 0:58, 0:57. Aaron grabbed Claire's shoulder. Step away. Right now. But the message kept blinking, the clock dropping second by second. And Claire felt with terrifying clarity that someone was tightening a noose around her reputation and using her isolation as the rope. The countdown on the screen kept falling. 0:32, 0:31, 0:30. Each second felt like a nail driven somewhere inside Claire's ribs. Aaron moved fast, pulling the forensic specialist back, her voice a sharp whisper. Unplug it, now. He reached for the cord. 0:27, 0:26. Marisa grabbed Claire's arm, not harshly but with enough pressure that Claire felt the message beneath the gesture. Do not break. Not now. Wait, Claire said suddenly. Everyone froze. Claire stepped toward the monitor. Her reflection hovered in the dark glass of the screen, fractured by the white text pulsing like a heartbeat. If we unplug it, she murmured. They may release the statement anyway. The system could be syncing with an automatic scheduler. Or with an external trigger. We don't know what pull they have. Aaron's breath hitched. She hated it. Hated acknowledging Claire might be right. If you go alone, we lose control of the environment. 0:21, 0:20, 0:19. This is leverage, the specialist said. They want proof you'll follow instructions. Marisa stepped in front of Claire, blocking her line of sight to the monitor like a human shield. No, she said quietly. You're not going anywhere alone. Not now. Not ever. The clock kept dropping. Claire exhaled a breath that felt like it had been held for years. Marisa, Claire whispered, if they release that statement, my career is over. Before I can defend myself, before the audit finishes, before Aaron can build a case. Marisa didn't move. Then we don't let them choose the field. Aaron's eyes flicked between them, between the seconds slipping like sand. 00:14, 00:13, 00:12. Then, Claire saw something in the corner of the screen, a faint flicker, a tiny icon, a network signature she recognized. Hold on, she breathed. This isn't a direct command. She pointed. That's a virtual relay. It's not originating from inside City Hall. It's a dummy terminal. Someone is spoofing a presence in this room. Aaron's eyes widened. Then this countdown is bluff-coded. Not a bluff, the specialist corrected. A trigger. But the trigger may be linked to a software event, not to whether Claire physically goes anywhere. Meaning? Marisa demanded. Meaning, he said, we track the relay and find where it's actually coming from. Aaron snapped her fingers. Then do it. Now. He typed fast. 0009-008-007. The computer fans spun louder, as though the machine itself were panicking. Come on, the specialist muttered. 006-0005. Then, he pointed at the map on his screen, and Claire felt her stomach drop. It's coming from the public records annex, he said. 2 blocks away. Someone's routing through their network. Aaron swore softly. Of course. The annex still uses outdated relay protocols. Marisa finally turned to Claire, her breath shaking, but her eyes steady. You're not going, she said again. The countdown reached its end. 0002, 0001, 000. The screen went black. Not a sound, not a release, not a notification. Just silence. Claire felt her knees weaken. Aaron exhaled hard, rubbing her forehead. The specialist sagged against the desk. Then, the screen flashed white again. A new message appeared. This was a demonstration. Aaron growled. They're testing boundaries. Another line. You've ignored instructions. Then, we escalate now. A final line. Check your email. And the screen went dark. Marisa pulled Claire against her instinctively, not hugging, but bracing her like someone expecting impact. Aaron grabbed her phone. We need to... Claire's phone buzzed. She unlocked it with trembling fingers. An email notification. Subject, draft release, pre-approval copy. Her pulse stuttered. It's from the communications office. Open it, Aaron said. Claire opened it and felt the blood drain from her face. A full press statement, polished, formatted, city seal at the top. And her name in the second paragraph. A headline designed to destroy senior coordinator implicated in preliminary findings, investigation ongoing. Not guilty, not fired, not charged, but implicated. Enough to bury someone publicly for a decade. Claire's hands shook so violently that Marisa took the phone gently from her fingers. This is not official, Marisa said. This had to be drafted outside the chain. Communications wouldn't release something like this without legal review. Aaron's jaw was rigid. Someone forced their template and scheduled the release, Claire whispered. When? Marisa scrolled. Her breath caught. There's a timer. It's cued to publish at 12 p.m. Claire checked the wall clock. 11:18. 42 minutes. Aaron was already moving. We need the controller's office now. The forensic specialist shoved equipment into his bag. Whoever is doing this is inside the system. They're overriding permissions in real time. Claire forced herself upright. I need to show this to Jason. He's deputy director. He can shut this down. Aaron's voice went flat. No. Jason is compromised. What do you mean? He's been in coordination meetings with Leonard for weeks. Someone leaked part of this memo with his phrasing intact. The memo from room 314, Marisa added. His comments matched the annotations. Claire staggered back a step. Jason helped build the case against me? We can't prove that, Aaron said. But we also can't trust him. Claire felt a hollow space open inside her. That space had been carved slowly over the past days. Accusations, whispers, manipulated files. But now it widened, a clean cut through bone. She sank onto the edge of the desk. Marisa crouched in front of her, steadying her with hands on her knees. Claire, she said softly, look at me. Claire did. And in Marissa's eyes she saw, not pity, not fear, but something warm and fiercely loyal. We're not letting them do this, Marisa whispered. Not to you. Not today. Claire blinked, emotion rising like a tide she couldn't hold back. Aaron snapped her briefcase shut. Let's move. We need to control the narrative before noon. They stepped into the hallway together, but as they turned toward the staircase, 7 people exited the elevator at once, senior staff, Jason among them. Jason's expression was unreadable, but his posture, tense, straight, rehearsed, made Claire's heart constrict. He wasn't surprised to see them. In fact, He looked like he had been waiting. "Claire," Jason said, smoothing his tie. "We need to talk privately." Aaron moved between them, voice cutting like glass. "No, you'll speak with counsel present." Jason ignored her. His eyes locked on Claire, cold, calculating, strangely steady. And then he said something that made Marisa step forward so fast she nearly collided with him. "Claire, the department is preparing a statement," Jason said. "And before it goes out, we're giving you one chance to step aside quietly." Claire's breath caught in her throat. "Step aside?" she whispered. Jason nodded once. "You resign today," he said calmly. "And we keep your name out of the press." The hallway felt suddenly too bright. Aaron inhaled sharply. "That's coercion. You can't." Jason raised a hand to silence her. Then, eyes never leaving Claire's, he spoke the words that slammed into her like a blow. "If you don't walk away, Claire, the story becomes yours to carry alone." Something shattered inside her. Behind her, Marisa whispered her name, soft, urgent, as if trying to hold the pieces together before they hit the ground. Claire stared at Jason, unable to form a single word, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she finally understood. This wasn't just a frame job, it was a purge, a carefully engineered removal, and she was the chosen casualty. Jason took a step closer. "You have until noon." Marisa stepped between them, shoulder squared, voice low. "No, she doesn't." Jason's jaw tightened. The elevator dinged behind him. The clock struck 11:22, and Claire felt the line in the sand, the one they had drawn for her, the one she was never meant to cross, shift beneath her feet. The hallway outside the administrative wing felt unnaturally still, as if the entire building were bracing for impact. Claire stood frozen, Jason's ultimatum still hanging in the air like smoke impossible to breathe through. "Resign by noon, or we let the story swallow you whole." Marisa moved first. She stepped forward, not aggressively, but with a precision and certainty that startled even Aaron. Her voice was low but clear enough to cut straight through the false calm Jason tried to maintain. "She's not resigning." Jason's jaw flexed. "This isn't about pride, Marisa. It's about saving her career from public collapse." "No," Marisa countered. "It's about covering your own tracks." A pulse of shock rippled across the small crowd gathered behind Jason, the senior analysts, the operations manager, 2 communications officers who stood stiffly, as if awaiting instructions. Jason's eyes hardened. "You're making assumptions you don't understand." "Am I?" Marisa asked. Aaron stepped forward before he could respond. "This conversation is over. Any future communication goes through counsel." Jason didn't acknowledge her. He only looked at Claire again, studying her face, measuring her resolve, taking stock of how much damage she might be capable of inflicting if she refused to fold. 37 minutes, he said quietly. "My hands won't be tied after that." He turned sharply and walked toward the elevator, the group behind him following like a coordinated column. The door slid shut behind them. Silence returned. Heavy, vibrating, electric. Claire finally exhaled, the sound thin and collapsing at the edges. Aaron touched her shoulder. "Come with me. We need to regroup and prepare a counteraction." But Claire didn't move. She couldn't. Her legs felt unsteady, as if she'd just stepped off a long bridge she hadn't realized she was crossing. Marisa stepped closer, eyes softening. "Claire, look at me." Slowly, she did. Marissa's expression was steady, direct, protective in a way that reached deeper than professionalism. "You're not walking out of here today," Marisa said. "Not like this. Not cornered. Not alone." The words struck something raw inside Claire. She swallowed hard. "He's not bluffing. They're ready to go public." "I know," Marisa whispered. "And that's exactly why you don't break." Aaron glanced at her phone. "We don't have time. Upstairs. Now." They moved as a unit. Aaron leading, the forensic specialist keeping pace, Marisa staying at Claire's side with a closeness that steadied more than startled her. They reached a small strategy room Aaron had commandeered earlier. She closed the blinds, locked the door, and placed her files across the table like weapons laid out before battle. "Let's begin," Aaron said. "First, we need to stop the release scheduled for noon." The specialist typed rapidly on his laptop. I can block the automated push, but if they've set multiple triggers or redundancies, they may override my block and publish manually. That's why we need something stronger, Aaron said. A legal freeze order. Claire blinked. Can we get one that fast? Not the full order, Aaron said. But I can file an emergency injunction request to the controller's office. If they approve it, communications will be legally prohibited from releasing anything with your name in it. Marisa crossed her arms. And if the controller is compromised too? Aaron paused, long enough that the silence felt like an answer. Then she took a breath. We still buy time. Claire looked between them, pulse echoing in her ears. Okay, tell me what you need from me. Aaron lifted a folder. This, proof Leonard accessed the server at 1:41 a.m. and that your UID was manually forged at 2:04. The specialist turned his screen toward Claire. And this, the metadata showing dual timestamps on the falsified file. Marisa added, and everything from room 314, the draft memo, the annotations, the timeline he was building against you, all of it. Aaron shook her head. Not enough. We need more. Something conclusive, something they can't spin. And then, for the first time in 2 days, a spark of something dangerous flickered in Claire's chest. Courage. Or maybe rage. I want to go to the controller's office myself, she said. Aaron stopped pacing. Absolutely not. They'll corner you. They're already pushing a resignation. They'll use your presence to claim you're interfering. I don't care, Claire said, voice shaking. I'm not letting Jason and Leonard decide my story. Marisa stepped closer. So close Claire could feel the warmth of her breath. The quiet conviction in her presence. You will not walk into that office alone, Marisa whispered. If you go, we all go. Claire looked up at her, and the moment became something suspended between them. Not romantic, not yet, but threaded with something unmistakable, something growing. Aaron cleared her throat softly. Fine, but we need to do it strategically. No confrontation, no accusations. We walk in with evidence and demand the controller halt the release pending further review. They gathered what they needed. At 11:39, they stepped into the corridor. Claire felt every second in her pulse. The building seemed to tilt around them. Lights, voices, footsteps, everything becoming sharp, too sharp, hyper-real. Marisa glanced at her. You ready? No, Claire whispered. But going anyway. Marisa smiled faintly. Good. That's usually when you make history. They reached the controller's office at 11:44. The receptionist stiffened the moment she saw Claire. Can I help you? Yes, Aaron said. We have an urgent matter requiring the controller's immediate attention. The receptionist hesitated. She's in a meeting. She'll want to see this, Aaron replied, sliding a folder across the desk. The woman scanned the first page, then her face drained of color. One moment, she whispered. Seconds passed. Claire's heart thundered. The door opened. The controller herself, Angela Rowe, stood in the threshold, a woman known for her stoicism, for her refusal to bend to political pressure. Come in, Angela said. They entered. Claire braced herself. Angela looked directly at her. I've reviewed the draft release. Claire's breath caught. Angela continued. And I already had questions. She tapped the folder. Now I have concerns. Aaron exhaled with relief, but the next words sliced clean through the air. Unfortunately, Angela said, communications is not the only department involved in this release. Claire frowned. What does that mean? Angela hesitated, then told her, the mayor's office reviewed the release this morning. Claire felt the world tilt. The mayor's office. If they support the release, Aaron asked carefully, can the controller still block it? Angela paused. And in that pause, Claire felt her stomach drop. Marisa reached for her wrist. Angela finally answered. Yes, she said, but only if we have incontrovertible proof that the evidence against you was manipulated. Aaron opened the folder. We have... Angela raised a hand. Not enough. Not yet. Claire's breath faltered. Then what do you need? Angela looked at her with something like regret. We need the source. Claire blinked. The source of what? Angela lifted a second document from her desk. The metadata file. The same one they had found. Someone else had sent it to her. This, Angela said, arrived anonymously at 7 a.m. Claire felt the blood leave her face. Someone on the inside, Angela said, is sending information to both sides, Marisa whispered. A dual informant, or someone sowing chaos, Angela added. Aaron stepped forward. Madam Controller, if you authorize a freeze, I can't freeze the release without the server trail proving a deliberate forgery. Claire's pulse hammered. We're missing one piece, Angela said. The access key used to force the override on Archive N1. Whoever did that used admin-level credentials. If we identify that person, everything collapses. Claire swallowed hard. But we don't know who used it. No, Angela said, but the system does. The forensic specialist leaned forward. Are you saying there's a traceable ID behind the override? Angela nodded once. Buried in the logs, deep. You'd need to pull from a secured server. Which one? Aaron asked. Angela hesitated. The server in the public records annex. The message from earlier repeated in Claire's mind. Room 314. Check your email. Come alone. Public records annex. It clicked like two gears aligning in her mind. Someone wants us to go there, Claire whispered. Someone wants you to go, Marisa corrected softly. But you're not. Claire looked at her. Marissa's eyes were fierce now, steady, unwavering. If you step into that building alone, Marisa said, you won't come back with evidence. You'll come back framed. Aaron grabbed her bag. We go together. And we go now. We have 15 minutes. Angela opened the door. Bring me the proof, and I'll stop the release. They rushed into the hallway. Claire's heart pounded. Marisa stayed close, so close their arms brushed with every step, a small, grounding contact that felt like the only stable fact left in the world. They reached the lobby. Rain hammered the windows. Aaron looked at Claire. Ready? No, Claire whispered, but going anyway. And then, just as they pushed through the doors, Claire's phone buzzed. A new message. No sender. Just 4 words. We know you're coming. Claire felt the ground shift beneath her feet, because this time, the message wasn't a warning. It was a threat, and whoever sent it was waiting. The rain had finally stopped by the time Claire stepped outside the public records annex. The sky above Boston was a muted silver, the kind that made the city feel suspended in a quiet between storms. She inhaled deeply, the air still cool against her throat. It was over. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but with a slow, undeniable shift, evidence clicking into place, truth surfacing, masks slipping. The server logs had revealed everything. The override key belonged to Leonard. The forged timestamps matched his machine's session. The anonymous messages came from a secondary account he'd created to frame her path and predict her reactions. And the draft statements? He'd prepared them weeks in advance. The purge plan Aaron had suspected all along. Leonard had been escorted out of the building at 3:22 p.m. Jason resigned an hour later, quietly, without looking anyone in the eye. By 5 p.m., the city's emergency audit team had issued an internal announcement clearing Claire Monroe of any involvement in financial misconduct. But the public release, the one drafted without her knowledge, never saw daylight. Angela Rowe blocked it herself. Now all that was left was the quiet after a brutal climb. The annex door opened behind Claire. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. She felt her before she heard her. Marisa stepped out into the fading light, her coat tossed over one arm, her hair slightly undone from the chaos of the day. She hadn't left Claire's side since they'd walked through the annex doors that morning. Everything's filed, Marisa said softly. Everything? Claire asked. Marisa nodded. Everything the city needed. Everything you needed. A light breeze passed between them, carrying the faint scent of wet pavement and late spring blossoms. Claire watched Marisa for a long moment, feeling the weight of a truth settling in her chest. You saved me, Claire whispered. Marisa shook her head. No, you saved yourself. I just stood where I needed to stand. Claire exhaled, a slow, unsteady release. I don't know what I would have done without you. Marisa stepped closer, not too close, but close enough that Claire could feel the quiet warmth of her. You won't have to find out, Marisa murmured. Silence lingered, heavy but soft around the edges. Not like the silence of accusation, more like the silence of something beginning. Claire's gaze drifted to Marissa's hand, resting at her side. Their fingers were only inches apart. This time, Claire moved first. She let her fingers brush lightly against Marissa's, barely a touch, tentative and warm. Marisa didn't pull away. Her fingers curled gently, just enough to answer. A shared breath. A held moment. Something delicate forming in the aftermath of everything that had almost broken them. "What happens now?" Claire asked, voice barely above a whisper. Marisa tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Now? You go home. You rest. And tomorrow?" She let the pause stretch, not dramatic, but meaningful. "Tomorrow you walk back into that building with your head high. And I'll be right behind you." Claire felt something deep inside her quiet. A steadying, a settling, a peace she hadn't expected to find tonight. She looked at Marisa again, really looked. In the dim light of the street lamps, Marissa's eyes were warm, unguarded in a way that made Claire's breath catch. There was no urgency now, no crisis to sprint through, only the truth of two people who had held each other together in a storm neither of them had chosen. And there in the falling hush of evening, Claire leaned forward. Not for a kiss, not yet, but for a closeness that was its own kind of beginning. Their foreheads brushed, a quiet, intimate touch. Marisa exhaled, her breath warm against Claire's cheek. "We made it," she whispered. "Because of you," Claire replied. "No," Marisa said softly. "Because you refused to disappear." They stayed like that for a moment that felt steady enough to start a new life from. Then Claire stepped back, smiling. Small, real, unbroken. Marisa mirrored it. "Walk with me?" Claire asked. Marisa nodded. "Anywhere." They fell into step together, close enough that their arms brushed, close enough that the city lights reflected in both their shadows, long and parallel, stretching forward into whatever tomorrow would become. The storm was behind them, but the future, quiet, slow, and promising, waited ahead. And for the first time in days, Claire felt unafraid.